Hi, I'm Brenda Kazire, and I'm one of the Care Queens along with Nancy Hireman. We're from Odonata Care, and we wrote the Care Plan, A Path to Comfort for the Hospice Patient. Today we're going to talk about how do I know my loved one has died? What do I do? What can I do? Because it can be a pretty overwhelming moment. Our goal is to recognize when death has occurred and then what to do. So how do I know my loved one has died? Well, first thing I'll say is it's pretty instinctual. And the other thing that I'd like to say is it, no matter how long we're sitting there, we're waiting for this really monumental moment to happen. And it's kind of shocking. It feels like you've just been blindsided, even though you know it's coming. That's a normal, healthy reaction. And I would expect that. Or sometimes you come in and you find them dead. You're like, that can't be it. It's just shocking. I've been doing this for over 35 years and still sometimes I just have this, are they dead? And I think that that's a really, I think I'm really glad I'm still asking myself that. So let's just be really practical and talk about how I know my loved one is dead. First of all, again, it's instinctual. I think we sense it. Physical signs is there's stillness. You don't see the chest rising and falling. You don't hear any breath anymore. You cannot feel a pulse. You can lay your head on their chest and you don't hear anything. You don't hear any respirations coming out of the mouth or the nose. And we still get calls when death has occurred, like, I just don't know, and I need a nurse to come tell me, and that's completely appropriate. But most people do know, and a lot of people like that time alone with their loved one. And for healthcare workers, for nurses who are newer to end of life care, sometimes you're not really sure. It takes a few times, and I think it's just for being good stewards, wanting to make sure. Many emotions can arise at this time when you find your loved one dead. Sometimes it's just after the shock, like, well, what do I do? And because it's a life-death situation, we sometimes feel this need to do something. But that's when we realize they're on hospice. We don't have to do anything. And my suggestion this moment is try not to feel rushed and having to do anything. And whatever emotion you may be feeling at that time, it's okay. It could be anger. It's often relief. That's beautiful. That's what real love is okay, you've made it. It could be overwhelming grief. It could be calmness. It could be rage. Whatever you're feeling, just sit with it for a few moments and know yourself. Make sure you have some loved ones with you. If you don't, call somebody if you need somebody. And then there's the practical piece. You need to let your hospice know, and you need to follow your hospice and state protocol. 2 examples. We're from Oregon, and in Oregon, we don't have to go pronounce death. But we ask that when people are ready, they call hospice and to let them know, and they know time of death. And then we talk about when they want the funeral home or the mortuary to come pick them up from the home. It can be anywhere from right away. And if you feel like I just want them out of the house now, trust that. Call hospice. Hospice will call and arrange for the funeral home to be there right away. That's totally fine. But then we have some people who want to keep the body in the home for 3 days. Most places, it's fine for 24 hours. After that, they ask you to get some dry ice under the body. Some religious practices do that. Then there's California. The law there is that a nurse has to come and pronounce death. And they have a nurse on 24/7 who's just going all over homes and facilities pronouncing death. And in the old days in hospice, we used to be able to stay and do this ritual process. And we still try to do that. Keeping in mind these nurses are up all night long and going from place to place. But I have to say it's one of my greatest joys throughout my practice is that it's being part of that death process. What do we do once they've died? So, okay, we've identified that they've died, and that's really not the hard part, but it can be, a little overwhelming. Now, what do? Well, we do what our hospice asks. We call and let the right people know, and then try not to be rushed. So what are our options? I have found over the years that creating some ritual or a practice or something around acknowledging the death tends to be helpful for people. It's not necessary. If you feel that you don't need to do this at all, then don't do that. But people really don't know how to start that. And I believe that life is full circle. So I stay very practical and I say, well, let's just start by washing the body. So the first thing we do is we undress them, cover them with a towel. We get out a basin of warm soapy water. If I'm in a home, I like to pull out their favorite body wash. It's a familiar smell. And we start washing. We start with the face, just like you would a newborn baby, with the face, the arms, and then you do their private parts to the last, front and back, rub them down. And part of the reason we do this is this body has carried them through this life. It's honoring that body, it's honoring the person, and it's also honoring all of us who have loved and cared for that person. And what I see often is I'll start the process and people are like standing back, and next thing you know, they get a little closer, they start the washing, then next thing you know, they're into it and they're full on. So wash the body, dry it, and then there's the potential of anointing with oils. It's a very old tradition, which I suspect comes from, we've been dying since the beginning of time. Dying is hard, smelly work, and years ago they didn't have running water and washcloths and wipes, and they would use what they had, which was flowers, and they would make oils. And so what I do is I keep some oils in my bag with me. Lots of people already have oils in their home, and it doesn't have to be an essential oil. It can be their favorite fragrant or perfume or cologne. And I take some just kitchen oil, whether it's vegetable or olive oil or coconut oil, put some in a little bowl with their favorite fragrant, mix it up. And then I just offer people to put some in their hand and wherever they feel drawn to put it on their body. Some people just want to touch their face, some people over their heart, some people just the hands. I was told once by an Indian family that the feet must be prepared to re-enter the earth. So I have feet issues myself, so I always kind of give special attention to the feet, and especially when it's not my loved one, the feet's a nice distance for me. And it also, and sees that they can do it. Some people just a little bit, and other people want to lather them up with oils. There's no right or wrong way. This is when the washing and the oiling, the tears come out, and it's really beautiful. I like to think of it as washing their soul with your tears, or their body, your soul washing their body with your tears. And it sounds a little funny, but it's true. It's a beautiful moment. And I've never had anybody say, boy, I wish I hadn't have done that. What I overwhelmingly see is people say, oh, that was good. And the purpose of this too is when you see somebody clean, you've brushed their hair, we've even put nail polish and makeup on. I done as little as just a face wipe and that's it. Some people like to leave the house with nothing on, to full on facial makeup, hair teasing, nylons. So there's anything out there. And we find that when you've gone through this process and you have this visual of them looking good, it helps transition into the bereavement process, and it kind of takes away a little bit of that fear of death that I think we all have. It's like, well, that wasn't so bad. I always ask people to choose what clothes they would like their loved one to wear, and if they're not sure, I said, you know them. Choose what they would want. Some people, before they die, they said, I want this, this, and this done. I had a woman once that she goes, you better make sure I leave the house with lipstick on. And I certainly did. I also put some rose oil on her and her favorite sweatshirt. So that's the part that fills you, that helps in this grief process, is doing that process. It's good. And then there's you don't have to be rushed. But what I find is there's this point where you're not as drawn to the body anymore. You're stepping out of the room more. You're feeling the distance. I'm convinced that some people leave their bodies before they're dead, and some people leave their bodies after they've been dead for a while. I can't identify it. I feel that, and I think that families feel that. But I think when you're feeling like, oh, they're just not really there anymore, that's a good time to call your hospice and say, okay, we're ready for pickup, whatever that timeline is, and um, and just trust that. And it's okay if you don't want to do anything. And the one last thing I like to see is a lot of people like to send mementos. We had a woman who she was getting ready to leave, and he's like, is it okay if I send her library card with her? She just never went anywhere without it. I was moved, and of course we put her library card with her. Another woman went into her garden and stuffed her husband's trouser pockets full of lavender because she was a gardener. I remember this one teenager, her granddad had died, and all these teenagers, they have their hair in a scrunchy bun, and they always wear these bands on their wrist. And she took the hairband out of her hair and she put it on her grandpa's wrist. And that simple act opened the family to grief and tears and beauty, and it just shifted it into this lovely ritual. And I like to think that it's helped all of them in the long run with dying. So I hope that it's helped identify how our bodies die and options that you can do. And there's so many more options than we discussed. So good luck, trust yourself, and be well. Thank you.